today from Leboo Life. Hi, Alice.
Hello.
Alice runs a beautiful business that makes belts and dog collars and all sorts of beautiful, beautiful leather things with beads and all sorts of lovely stuff, and has a very funny and fascinating story as to how on earth she came about. As she says, she went to buy a belt and came out with a business. So we're going to find a little bit more about that today. So Alice, just tell us a little bit about Leboo Life and what it is.
So we import fairly traded leather goods from Kenya. We've got a workshop in Nairobi who actually produce the items. They come to us pretty much fully formed. So I had a shipment yesterday, which is piled up behind me, which is very exciting to wade my way through. Each piece is, although we have certain guidelines of design and colour, it's up to the mummers what they bead. So every item has got its own little quirk, its own individual look. So we do belts, collars, brow bands, leads, key rings, all sorts. If you can put beads on it and it's leather, we can do it.
Cool. Okay. And so how did you tell us the story then? I love this story. How did you come about?
At Burley 2018, so the business existed before it was my business. I'd been popping into Burley. I'm a Burley addict, so very sad this year. I'd been popping in to see Ella and Peter, who owned the business, for a good few years, and got chatting to one of the girls on the stand, because Ella and Peter were off. They just had a baby, so they were sat to the side having a 5-minute break, and it turned out to be Ella's cousin. Let slip that Ella and Peter were thinking about either selling or giving up the business because they were living in France, and it was just a lot to juggle. It's quite, as I've learned, a time-consuming business. And I sort of walked away with I think I had 2 brow bands and a belt, and went home, and I couldn't get it out of my head. I didn't know why I couldn't stop thinking about it, but I just set up my marketing business and I had a little bit of extra time on my hands. My dad has always instilled in me variety is the spice of life, and don't put all your eggs in one basket. So I was like, well, this is another basket. And I emailed them out of the blue. I'd seen somebody and we'd been talking about Kenya, and I got in the car and I was like, I've got to email them. So I emailed them and said, really cheeky, but it was let slip on the stand that you might be considering either selling or moving on with the business. Would you by any chance consider me? And they gave me a good grilling. They made sure that I was the right person, because there was a few people in the running, bigger businesses, and I was the lucky one. And the blinking, we're pretty much 2 years down the line, which is crazy.
Okay, so you bought a business.
Yeah.
Which most people don't buy a business. Most people set it up from scratch or what have you. So what was it like then, having bought a business that was already running and doing things? What was that kind of challenges and stuff?
It was really strange because I'd got two other businesses, a property business which I started from scratch and the marketing business which I started from scratch. They're mine. I know exactly how they work. I know what goes where, and I know everything. Whereas coming into an existing business with an existing client base, a very passionate, almost like fan group of the products, because they are the kind of products that somebody buys one and then they want to collect all the other colours or patterns or what have you. So it was getting to grips with things like the website. Now I'm very website savvy, but somebody else had built this and I was like, what is this? None of it made sense. I couldn't work out how the SKUs had worked. I'd worked in retail before, but I'd never had a product-based business of my very own. So there was me thinking, this will be fine. We just sell some stuff, right? And it's a lot more complicated than that. And I knew I had the marketing side, pretty much done, but I'd never set up a show stand. You know, we were going to Badminton Burley, the two biggest events in the eventing calendar, and I can't use an electric screwdriver. And we had this stand which we'd inherited. Pete's an engineer by background, so he built this stand which you hand to me, 5 foot nothing, you know, with a ladder and an electric screwdriver, and I was like, I can't do this. I genuinely, we got to badminton last year and I thought, I can't do this. It's not going to happen. I'm not going to have a stand. What am I going to do? But by some miracle and a hell of a lot of support from other people, I'm very lucky to have an amazing support crew who love the products as much as I do, and a very tolerant husband, I think is probably the word. I told him that we were buying a business and that he would be a director, and he sort of went, okay. But he sort of,
you've got to love a tolerant husband, haven't you? I think so many of us female entrepreneurs have got, you know, the husband just goes, yes, okay then, whatever, darling, have fun.
He doesn't ask anymore. He sort of just nods and goes, okay, fine, okay. Yeah, that sounds sure. Good. Like, what business are you working on today? Okay, fine, I'm going to work now. So yeah, buying somebody else's business was just, nobody's brain works the same. We're all programmed differently and we all have different ways of working. And actually, one thing, having the last 3 months of obviously events being cancelled and a lot more downtime, I have built a new website on a platform that I like from an e-commerce perspective. So it all makes sense, with SKUs that make sense to me, rather than trying to work out what. And it was all done in a specific way. I get that, but it just wasn't my way and I didn't understand. So yeah, but it's brilliant because actually you can hit the ground running. And that was really nice, because I had people coming to me telling me as the business owner that they'd had collars for years and how much they loved them and could we have another one. And actually that's a real morale boost when you're 2 months in going, oh my God, I don't know what I'm doing. Why did I think this was a good idea?
And that must have been a marketeer's dream, to already have a loyal client base to build from.
It was quite so Ella and Peter were quite open with the fact that they'd built a really loyal Badminton and Burley crew, but the marketing in between was very limited. They had a social media presence, but they didn't really enjoy it. Like so many business owners, social media, they're like, oh God, do we have to? And particularly with a little person joining the team, they just didn't have the time. So I had this amazing blank canvas to build pretty much whatever I wanted. And talk about an aesthetic product, like photo shoots for Leboo are just the most fun, because there's dogs, there's horses, and there's people in pretty belts. Like, absolute dream.
Well, what could you want?
I know.
You know, dogs, horses, and pretty things. That's the girl's dream. Sure, you just need a bit of Prosecco thrown in there, and it's absolutely, you know, or gin.
Whatever.
Yeah. Okay, so essentially you've got 3 businesses then. You've got property, marketing, and a product-based business. Yeah. What would you say are the sort of the main differences between the 3 of those?
Well, the property business is slightly feast or famine in terms of time requirements. When the properties are tenanted and everyone's happy, I barely hear from that business because it's sort of tucked away, and you know, houses most of the time aren't too needy until they need rewiring or something. So that business I sort of dip in and out of to a certain extent. We've got some HMO projects and things that I am part of, but I'm pretty silent in. So that's quite nice because I kind of know that that's ticking. The product-based business, I mean, the last 3 months has been bizarre because we've not had the events that we thought. We've had to turn the marketing up on its head and totally rethink our approach because our 2 biggest outlets, Burley and Badminton, are gone. And that was weird. And then the marketing business, that's my people business. that's all about relationship. Well, they're actually, in fairness, they're both about relationships, really, because I think with any luxury product, and we do sit in a luxury price point, it's about building relationships and helping people understand the products. They're not just going to, it's not like going to buy a belt from Primark or a belt from H&M. You're going to buy the belt that you really love, and it's going to take a little bit longer and a bit more nurturing. And I think I don't think could be in a product-based business where you're sort of doing really high volumes, faceless, nameless. That wouldn't suit me. And it's the same with our marketing business. Charlotte and I are the business. And, you know, people work with us, I hope, because we're good at what we do, but also because they like us as people and want to work with us. But I'd say certainly the product-based business and the marketing business work really well together, because it's our perfect case study. And certainly the last 3-4 months has been proof of that, because I've really had to sit back and go, well, firstly, pull my head out of the sand, because I was in denial for a period of time. I think we all kind of went, oh, I don't know what to do. And then once Burley had cancelled, I was like, come on, Alice, you need to face up to the fact that we need to change. Because I'd slightly just gone, oh, well, we do great turnover at Burley and Badminton. Easy. Just bit of Facebook, bit of this, bit of that. And actually that, in hindsight, didn't serve us so well. But it's a little bit treating Leboo like a client. I've got to treat it like a client, because otherwise it ends up at the bottom of the pile, because paying clients come first on the marketing side. So we've treated Leboo like a client. I'm keep looking up here because all the collars are up here. So I'm like, oh, here they are.
Can you show us any? Have you got any we can see? Or not easily?
I can
Go on, show us
you.
some. We keep talking about this product. I want to see this.
I was about to grab all the new colours, and I was like, no, definitely can't show you those.
Oh, that would have been a great little internet leak. That would have been a coup. People on the podcast wouldn't be able to see it, of course, but you know.
Let me take.
I'm gonna have to do some descriptions.
Let me take the. I've just taken the special edition colours out.
Oh, I wanted a little sneaky preview then. Okay, right. So what we got? They're beautiful. They're so multicolored.
These are some of the colours. Yeah, wow. So really really bright, or we do some more neutral tones.
And so you were talking about the ladies out in
lurchers.
Because obviously we're greyhound. I could never find good greyhound colours.
We're a lurcher family.
Yeah, and they're so beautiful. So you were saying about the ladies that make them and things. They don't have a pattern or anything. Now, there's some similar ones there and some in the same kind of colour scheme. So how much kind of say do you have over that?
So we can have what we want. So basically what happens is we've got set designs that we work with. We've got 5 set designs which we use on the collars and the brow bands, because with those we need a little bit more structure. So when I order something like that, the team in the workshop will bag up the beads, and then they'll deliver those out to the villages and say, this is what we need with these beads. And they'll come back then in panels and then get stitched onto the leather. With the belts, I say, do what you fancy. These are the colours we want to use. Like, for example, I've got 2 special editions here that I can show you because these are special orders. So this is for my friend Eleanor. So she said that she wanted turquoises and blues and whites. So that's what I said, but we didn't dictate more than the bead colours.
That's gorgeous. So just for the people that are on the podcast, that's a beautiful kind of like arrow blues and things with lots of sort of triangles.
I call it the Christmas tree design.
Okay, yeah, I can see how that's a Christmas tree. It looks like
a Christmas tree.
Yeah, little triangles and things. That's lovely.
And then this is for Eleanor's son, actually, who golfs for Ireland.
I was going to say that looks like Irish to me. The Irish colours there. Oh, it's beautiful. And the beads are so shiny, aren't they? They really.
I know. Yeah, the beads. Well, the beads. I mean, we've got so many different beads that we work with. The bead chart's massive, and that's the fun. That's what I love about it, is putting colours together, and that's my creative side. And the patterns. I love opening. Yesterday was the best because I opened up the box and I had all these new belts. with new patterns that I've never seen before. And it's just so, it's like Christmas whenever I get a delivery. And they're just so talented. I don't know how they work so into the beads are tiny, they're absolutely tiny. And they can do it in such intricate patterns, and it fascinates me. Watching it be done fascinates me.
And so these things are all done in Kenya. So tell us a bit about the values and the ethics of the company then.
So the biggest thing for me, and where the business has come from, is that things are fairly traded. So often you pick up things that aren't, and it's all about slowing down fashion and creating pieces that people want to keep and love. We give 20% of profits back to the Savo Trust. So all these products are made in Savo, and that is all about creating cohesion between community and the wildlife that they live with. And I think people forget when they buy a belt or, you know, a leather product, that there is different levels of leather. You know, one leather is not every leather. The leather that we use is out of the meat trade in Nairobi, so it's all from a recycling point of view. It's using the whole animal. The brass is all recycled brass, and it's just about making pieces that people will treasure and love because they're beautiful, but also knowing that they've not been made just for the sake of making them. They've been put together and it's all been thought through. And we're supporting communities. You know, it's about giving the women in the villages an income, a steady income, doing something that they love, and being able to introduce people to something, because people quite often will look at the products and go, oh, do you do this? And I go, God, I wish I could do this. And they find out how it's made, and they're just like, wow, that is so amazing. I had no idea that is a Kenyan product. And I'm like, yeah, and there's so much more that you can go and explore. So I think we've probably got a few people on a plane to Kenya as a result of the products, because they go, oh my God, I need to go see where these are made. So yeah, it's a passion project. It's not going to make us rich, because we pay quite a lot to get these products to the UK, and we try and give back as much as we can, but it's so worth it. It's so worth it.
And so tell us a little bit about what's important to you about that then. So, you know, what is it that means that you're happily putting your valuable time and your energy into, I love that name, a passion product. I think that's brilliant.
Yeah, I think it's having a product that you feel you can invest, because it is a big investment, whether it's money, whether it's time, and having something that you feel in a little way is making a difference. And it's very, very difficult. I think the world is a very busy place at the moment in particular, but I know that by promoting these products and selling these products, the end user gets something really, really beautiful, but that £40 that they've spent on a collar is going back, and actually it's making a difference both ways, because when we buy the product, it's fairly traded, and the team in Nairobi are getting a fair price for what they're producing, but also once it's sold, we can then give a little bit more back, and it's keeping that cycle going. And just slowing down this sort of consumer, I need this, and actually going, well, how about having something that is a bit different, it's a bit, you know, off center, but that, you know, has been produced sustainably, but also that will never go out of fashion, because they're probably not really that in fashion. But do you know what they're not that in fashion, but they're never going to date, and they don't age, you know, they last forever. They're not, you know, there's no built-in obsolescence here. it's a product that you'll wear forever.
And so, without built-in obsolescence, with this idea of having something you keep forever and you love, and it's a luxury price point and what have you, how then do you have customers come back? What's the business model for you?
So it's usually, so on the belts, it's I want a different colour, or I want to buy one for a friend, or I really loved it and I want we've got different widths. So they might want one pair for jeans, one pair for high-waisted jeans, different colours. That, especially the turquoise one that I showed you earlier, that we love, it's beautiful. That is her third belt. So, it's, if you can make something that is high quality, that people realise lasts, they will come back because they want a collection. With dogs, it tends to be, we've got a puppy, we want a different colour, it's that. Again, with dogs, it's, and quite often, sadly, if a dog passes away, they want to keep that collar as that dog's collar. It's they see it as belonging to that dog, so they will come back and buy the puppy a new collar. Brow bands, us horsey ladies, we love a little bit of variety, and a change of cross-country colours obviously means a change of brow band.
Absolutely. I've got a new horse who would suit my cross-country colours absolutely stunningly, but no, new horse, got to have new colours.
New colours.
Yeah, they were her old colours, the same as the dog, I suppose, isn't it? Yeah. So, and I don't suppose you've got a brow band there to show us, have you? Because I'm trying to picture what a brow band might look like with these beautiful beads. I mean, I know they're tiny, but what kind of combinations do you get on a brow band? Oh, here we go. She is, look, well prepared.
This is why I moved my office around, so that everything was in reaching distance.
There you go.
So
so they're quite wide. They're nice, aren't they? Beautiful brow bands,
so
quite wide with
good
colours.
whacked colour.
So they're quite kind of like Argentine polo-esque. That one's certainly quite sort of polo-esque, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, so quite often people come to us because they've had Argentinian products previously. And the one thing that I will say, the beads, quite often with the thread, and I've had it before because I used to be quite involved in polo, and I've had a few of those belts. I have never had the brow bands, weren't really a thing when I was 10 years ago. An Argentine belt was like, woo, height of newness. And I found that mine has like stretched in the belt loops and things. The beads do an amazing job of keeping the structure of the leather, because leather does stretch. But the beads seem to hold the structure much better. And a lot of people will say that they've got some fantastic quality Argentine products out there, and they just want something a bit different. And actually they kind of go quite well together, because you can get colours that complement each other. And we've got a few polo cross players who are quite passionate about our products, which is really nice, because it's nice to see them like in action.
Okay, and so tell us then about the beads. You might think they might break, or the threads would go and things. I mean, yours look so tightly, compactly, like compactly, that's not a word, but they look really compact, really tight, really solid, because, I think a lot of people would see a beaded product and be worried because of poor quality stuff that it would break or what have you. So how do you know that yours are spot on and they live the test of time?
Well, put it this way, I've had my collars on my dogs that I think my husband was on the night shift last night, so I think the dogs have gone back to bed with him. My dogs have had their collars on for 2 years. My brow bands have been on my horses and ridden in them every day for 2 years, and they look exactly as they did when they started. And we have people coming back to us going, I just want to buy a new collar, but this one hasn't broken yet. And you sort of go, well, would you like a different colour one? And I think, I'm not going to say that every single one of our products is going to last. Natural products, leather, sometimes there is defects in the material. Sometimes a string of beads might go, and that unfortunately is just part and parcel of having a handmade product that involves natural materials. But it's very few and far between. And normally it's sort of getting towards the end of the lifespan of that product that kind of thing starts to happen. Or if the one thing, salt water and leather, I'm a big advocate of looking after your leather because it needs to be cared for. And if it's not cared for, it will start to struggle with life, particularly if you've got a dog that loves being in the sea. Ideally, put a different collar on for them to go in the sea, is my advice. A nice fabric collar that's easy to dry out. But if they are going to go in the sea, make sure you look after it.
So how would you look after it then? You just clean it off, wash it off, condition it?
Yeah, exactly how you would with any tack. I use I put this on everything before it leaves us, called Leather Genie. You see these guys at shows, they're like, do you want some of this on your boots? And you go, oh God, yeah, go on then. But actually it is really good. And this pot has lasted me years. Like I use this every day. So I try and make sure that I sort of let people know, you know, this, just because it's got beads on doesn't mean that you can just leave it. It does still need to be looked after.
Cool. Okay. So we've heard about your products, which are gorgeous. And, you know, about the ethics and that side of it and how passionate you clearly are about that. And obviously this is one of those businesses where you say this isn't sort of a lifestyle business. This is something that you're doing because you're passionate about it, and something else has to like pay the bills and feed the dogs and the horses, clearly.
Yeah.
So what kind of what is it that keeps you going in your own business? What is it that stops you going and getting a job, or, you know, when the days are hard, because they are, what is it that keeps you going?
I think it's a little bit of don't let yourself down, and also a little bit of people are watching, like, you know. And I think recently in the last 3-4 months, I feel like I say it over and over again, I've realized that it's okay to say, actually, I found this really hard and I did stick my head in the sand, and no, I didn't really enjoy it I didn't know that I was finding it difficult at the time, but looking back on it, I go, yeah, you were showing some quite strange tendencies, like not wanting to get out of bed and, you know, struggling to even get yourself to your desk. That, you know, at the time you don't see it, but you come out of it and go, hang on, that's not a good sign. And I think I started working when I was 14 and have always been so determined to be financially independent. And I actually really enjoy working. And that sounds really strange, but I enjoy making money. And I think a lot of people are a bit shy of admitting that, but there is nothing nicer than knowing that you are filling your bank account of your own accord. I was employed for many years after uni, during uni and after uni, but the most rewarding thing was when I had my first invoice paid. That was the moment where I was like, actually, this is better than a paycheck. This was 100% created by me, and that is an amazing feeling, absolutely amazing feeling.
And you're right. I think, you know, money can be seen as this thing we're not allowed to talk about. And, you know, a lot of people think it's vulgar to talk about money and what have you. And a lot of us have grown up without actually any financial education. Actually, when you think about it, we're not actually taught how to manage money and what to do with money. And I'm not talking about, you know, money in versus money out and budgeting and things. I mean, like, really understanding money properly.
Yeah.
And I think that's, you know, like you say, people say, oh, it's an awful thing for someone to say, I like having money. But you do, because it gives you things, it gives you freedom, it gives you. So what does it do for you? Let's get into the dirty topic, shall we?
Dirty money topic.
Dirty money thing. What is it for you that means that, because money in itself is nothing, is it? It's a figure on an app, on a bit of paper, whatever it is. So what does it do for you? Why freedom? Why that?
It gives me, so we live in a slightly funny setup. So we live on the family farm. We've got nieces and nephews here. We've got mother-in-law, grandmother-in-law. We're all tucked in together, and everybody pretty much works for themselves in one way or another. And for me, I had the perfect example. My mother-in-law rang me. My husband's a police officer, so he is quite a structured rigid shift pattern that can be pretty harrowing at times. I got a phone call from my mother-in-law the other day. Alice, I seem to have bought afternoon tea. And I went, okay, well, that doesn't happen by accident. You bought that. So yes, what? And she went, do you want to pop over at about 4 o'clock and we'll have afternoon tea? And I was like, yeah, okay. And I can do that. And I used to work, I started out when I graduated and we moved up to Nottinghamshire. I worked in recruitment and I was leaving the house at 6:20 in the morning and I was getting home at 7:30 at night, because it was expected that you worked ridiculous hours for pretty little gain, really. And it made me really miserable, really, really miserable. And again, I didn't see it at the time, but when I came out of it and I went into the veterinary industry and I was in control of my own diary, although I was still employed, I was in the field working with vets, kind of doing what I do now, but specifically for vets. I suddenly realized that I spent 18 months being exhausted, and I'd get to the weekend and just flop, and my eventing suffered as a result of it, and all sorts of things. But so for me, having money means flexibility, and it's not being, the big spender. I'm tight. I'm so tight, so tight. But it's having the ability to say yes to stuff that I haven't been able to say yes to before. And that's not expensive holidays and stuff like that. It's, do you want to pop round? Like later, for example, I'm going to ride at 3 and then I'm going to go and help my friend jump her pony. It's little things like that where I can just move my day around and give myself that flexibility.
So freedom's obviously very important for you, flexibility, variety. So we're learning some of your values here already.
Yeah.
I can totally see how you became such a fab entrepreneur. And what is it then that means you're drawn to the type of businesses that you've got? Because that's 3 kind of very different businesses, really, isn't it?
Very different. The beauty of property is it can be relatively left alone depending on what kind of investments you make. So I've got rental properties, sort of complete rental properties, that when they've got tenants in them are pretty happy. And then I also invest in HMO developments, but I am a silent investor in that. So I basically say, here is my money, I'll see it again in 6 months or what have you. So that works for me because it just sort of happens. And I think everyone talks about, having a passive income stream being amazing, blah, blah, blah. And there's lots, I think, of trickery and not very good schemes out there. But property, if you need to take the time to understand it. If you understand it, it's safe. If you don't understand it and just go, take my money, do whatever, that's when it gets dangerous. And the marketing business, we work with people that we really want to work with. We tend to be attracted to particular people, and it rolls out from there. Like someone will introduce you to somebody else and somebody else and somebody else. So suddenly you've got this amazing client base of really lovely people. And I am a bit of a people pleaser, if I'm honest. I like people going, oh, that's brilliant, thank you. What a nice feeling. So, and we've helped a lot of businesses go from, very, very early days to suddenly being in Fortnum's, for example. That's cool. How cool is that to say that I've been sat with a brand from sitting and going, what the hell are we going to call this business, through to they went live in Fortnum's a couple of weeks ago. That's cool. That's really cool. So, and Leboo, I get to stand on a stand at Burley of badminton, COVID aside, and talk to people about these lovely products, get to cuddle dogs and get to put belts on people that make them feel amazing and go, oh my God, yeah, I love this. That's cool. Like they all just make me, I mean, the property doesn't set my world on fire. That's sort of fairly boring. I mean, how exciting can a house be? But the other side, I get to work with really cool people all the time, and I love that.
And so that sounds to me then like you've worked a way of having something that we would call your cash cow, which is it generates income. It's not very interesting. It does its thing. It's solid. It's safe. It's fairly reliable. Yeah, there'll be fluctuations and things. You've got to give it a bit of attention every now and again, like with anything. Also, there is no such thing as a truly passive income. You have to work for it at some point, whether that be upfront to get it up and going, whether that be in the middle to keep it just ticking over, or whether that be when the poop hits the fan, really, isn't it? You know, there is no such thing. However, what that does is keep it ticking. So you've got your safe, dependable, reliable stuff going on there. Then you've got the bit that requires more work but is more people-y. So for you, that sounds like it's much more about creating something for someone else, helping them, supporting them, creating something, but it's not yours. It's theirs, and being part of their team. And then you've got your little piece where you get to have the fun and the enjoyment of things, and you get to provide something for someone as well that's tangible.
Yeah.
So there's a whole lot of variety in there, isn't there? So you started off saying your father said to you, variety's the spice of life, and my word, you've lived by that one.
Exactly. Well, I was very lucky. I was brought up on an amazing farm in Herefordshire, and I think when I was, well, probably until I was a teenager, I thought that was all that he did. I thought that he was just a farmer, a very well-educated farmer. He's got a PPE degree, you know, he should have probably been a politician, I don't know. But as I've got older, I've realised that he was doing so much more than just farming. And the more I mature into adulting, the more I realise how similar we are. And actually, I think I was probably always destined to be self-employed. And he never said, you know, you should do this or you should do that. He's never thrown like loads of praise at me, which I think is a really good thing, because I never sort of settled. I never thought, oh well, that's it. He's very typical farmer. He goes, oh okay, cool, yeah, well done. I wished him happy Father's Day via text message on Sunday, because he's shielding, and I'd spoken to him on the Saturday, and I sent him a picture from our wedding, and, you know, happy Father's Day, hopefully see you soon, and I just got a thumbs up emoji. And I was like, well, that sums it up. That's but
a man, a few words, but clearly when he says them, they're worth saying.
They're worth saying. He's a pretty good sounding board, put it that way, and I think that's what everybody needs in life, is a good sounding board, or 3 or 4.
And so that's a great thing then, leading us onto your team. So no one's an island. Obviously, you've got business partners and things you've talked about, but who are the most important people for you in your team? So
probably whether she likes it or not, most important person in my team is Charlotte. She's my business partner. We have a very similar upbringing, in as much as we actually grew up 5 minutes down the road from each other, didn't ever know each other until 18 months ago, and met through a mutual friend in Nottinghamshire, because we'd both moved up here. Very weird. Again, weird story, but I'm kind of the opinion that these things